Hello everyone, and welcome back to Cabin Fever Crochet with me, Helene here. Today I bring to you something a little bit different, a new venture for me, and my first tutorial for a Herrschners / Willow yarns pattern. I've been in touch with the company. I've been given permission to do this, as well as being able to modify their patterns, which is really exciting for me because if you've been watching me, you know that I like to put my own maybe little signature touch or my own style onto something and look at the pattern and give you more options, different things that we can do with it, different sizes and so forth. So you can go online and you can print out the Spring Water Chevron scarf, and this is by Karen McKenna, so a big thanks to Karen and Herrschners. This is a wonderful little pattern. It's easy and it works up very quickly. Now, even though it's called a scarf, I'm going to show this to you, pull this up on my phone, and you can go online and look. Now this is actually an infinity scarf because in the pattern it does say to sew both ends together. But you can, however, make this a scarf, and I did, and I'm going to show you that too. And this would make a great cowl. I figured out the multiples for you so that way you can make it as wide or as narrow as you want, depending on the type of yarn you're using and the season. Here's another photo of it, a little more up close so you can really see it. And I'm going to show you the yarn that it was used in, which I did order. However, it was on back order, and I got one, and I was going to work it together, but I think it's a little, too thin to show up on camera anyway. But here's the catalog, and just to let you know, I'm not sponsored. And I did purchase the yarn with my own money. And it's the Willow Verbena, 75% superwash, 25 nylon, and it's a very light number 3 at 370 yards for a 3.5 ounce, 100 gram skein. Now it recommends an F hook. In the pattern, it is using one size up, a G hook or 4 millimeter. I ordered the Jovial, which I thought was real fun for spring, but this was the original Spring Water, and because it went with the name of the scarf, and that's the one I showed you in the picture on my phone. And these are really basic stitches, so if you can double crochet and chain, then you can do this pattern. Now the pattern calls for 1 ball of the verbena yarn to make this infinity scarf. However, I feel that's going to depend on how tall you are and your body shape, because the measurements are 6 by 56 inches, 142 centimeters. Now 56 inches is only 4 feet 8 inches. If you want something that's going to just drape partially down your body, that's fine. But if you want to really be able to double up on it, or if you want to do a full scarf that you can fold in half, wrap around your neck in a couple of ways, as I've shown in the intro photos, then you might want to go ahead and get 2, and also depending on how wide that you want it. After trying a few different types, from just a regular, like a plain number 3 cotton, I tried the Willow wheels. I think something that has some texture to it is going to work really well, and it just makes this piece come to life rather than have it being real flat. I haven't worked a chevron stitch in decades, and there's just something satisfying about going back to basics and doing this, to see that when you take a simple stitch and beautiful yarn, you wind up with really a work of art. And this yarn is Lion Brand Shawl and a Cake. I used an H hook for this one, and I just wanted something very, very light and airy for the summer. And you can see how it puddles down. It'll make a wonderful summer scarf or cowl, just to have a little accessory and drape coming down off your neck. If you work in an office, having lunch somewhere where it's air conditioned, or even in your car, that it just takes that chill off a little bit. Sometimes when I'm in my car, the sun comes in directly on the driver's side and just blasts my neck and shoulders. It's nice having a little protection on there without getting overheated. This is called Pastels. I also think that Red Heart Unforgettable will work up really, really nicely for this, because it is that kind of a light semi-roving where it goes from thick to thin. So it's going to add interest and give texture to your work. This is in the color Red Sea. And this yarn I picked up this past winter at Michael's. It's a loops and threads, and it's called Colors. And I'm showing it to you because I didn't realize at the time, unfortunately, that I don't know if it's discontinued altogether or just maybe a seasonal yarn, but worked it very, very nicely. And it's very similar as the Red Heart Unforgettable. So you're going to get a similar result with this. And this one I made very long. And you can see having something with texture. Again, it makes a simple stitch just come to life. And then I will explain to you at the end how I did my fringe, and if showing you putting it together if you want to do a cowl. And as far as the tools go, you will need 2 hook sizes. Go with, as a general rule, the standard, the hook size that the ball band calls for. You can do a little test swatch if you want small one, just to see how your stitches look. But just 1 hook size for your initial foundation chain and our first turning chain. Because what I found using the same hook size is, because the nature of this stitch, that first turning chain, it tends to cinch the work in and pull it up on this side. And then also that base foundation chain tends to curl. And it is in multiples of 10 plus 2. The plus 2 is your turning chain. I suggest, if at all possible, and this isn't absolute, you don't have to do it this way, because depending on your width, it may or may not work out for that, and that's perfectly fine. But if you can, use an odd number. For example, I did 30, so which gives me 3 sets of 10, the 30 plus my chain 2. And what's nice in odd numbers is that you have your center focal point, and then you have an even number on both sides. In this case, it's 1 and 1, and that just creates a nice symmetry and a nice balance. But if you're doing a wider cowl and it's going to be squished together anyway, you're not going to really see all that, that's fine. You know, to me, this would make an awesome summer scarf too. So you will have the length coming down the front on either side of your body, and then that's going to show up more. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and get this started. And if you want to print out this pattern, then you can just follow along, and I hope that will help you learn to read patterns as well. I've chained 30 plus 2 For demo, I'm working in Hobby Lobby. I love this cotton. It's very soft, number 4 weight, good stitch definition, easier for you to see. It recommends an eye hook, which I use a lot for this yarn, but I'm going to be using the eye 5.5 millimeter for the larger of the two, then I'll be dropping down to an H 5 millimeter for the whole rest of the work. And on this particular project, I'd like you to work into the top loop, just that one loop only, and that way you have the bottom two to give more body, more of a base for the first row, and it's going to help that bottom lay flat. And another tip is that sometimes when I'm adjusting and I'm putting the working yarn on my hand, that last chain tends to shrink down a little bit, and if that happens with you, then please redo it, put that back in. And by redoing that last chain, if it gets too small, that's going to keep that edge of your work from getting squished down and curling up too. Okay, so we are going to double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook, and these first 2 chains that we skip do count as your first double crochet. Alright, and again I'm using the larger of the two just for this first stitch only. And then now set that aside far away from you so you don't accidentally grab it like I do. Okay, so now double crochet in each of the next 2. And that's going to give you 4 double crochets counting the first 2 chains, and you will have the 3 full and the 2 chains for every row at both ends of your work. We are going to do our first double crochet 2 together, skipping these 2 chains, and then double crocheting 2 together into the next 2 stitches. Alright, so I'm going to show you kind of slowly how to do this the first time. If you need to see it again, feel free to rewind. Alright, so you're skipping 2 and then going to double crochet 2 together in the next 2. So you yarn over, go into the designated stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through the first 2. And make sure when you pull those loops up they're to the height of the rest of your work. Leave those 2 loops on the hook and then begin again, yarn over and go into the next stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and now you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3, and you just turn those 2 stitches into 1. Alright, so we double crochet 2 together, and now we're going to double crochet 1 in each into the next 3 stitches. Chain 2 and double crochet again into each of the next 3 stitches. We're not skipping any this time because here we created the first point of our chevron, and now we're creating the second. Alright, so that was 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to double crochet 2 together again, so we're going to skip the next 2 chains, double crochet the next 2 together, and then now we're at the end of our first asterisk, and where you have the first one and the second asterisk here on the pattern, you can see that, row 1 asterisk, the second. This is where the repeat is all the way to the last 3 chains. So now we repeat. We are going to double crochet in the next 3 double crochets. And I'm going to ignore that knot. we're going to chain 2, again double crochet in each of the next 3 chains. Then we're going to double crochet 2 together, so again you skip the 2 chains next to that last double crochet, double crochet the next 2 together, alright, so now we're to the last 3 chains. We are going to double crochet 1 each into the next 2 chains. There's 1 and 2, and then we're going to place 2 double crochet into that very last chain. That's going to give us our 4 at this end. After the double crochet 2 together. Alright, so now for row 2, and that is going to be our repeat row. Chain 2, and as states in the pattern, the chain 2 counts as a stitch, and it does here and throughout. And to keep these stitches from shrinking down, I keep my loop on the hook a little bit elongated, and I pinch it, hold it together when I make that turn. That really helps a lot. Alright, you're going to double crochet in the first double crochet. So you have 2 in that first one, counting your chain 2. Then double crochet in each of the next 2. So there you have your 4. And now we're going to double crochet 2 together, but instead of skipping 2 this time and throughout, we're going to skip over that double crochet 2 together from the previous row. Right, so we're going to begin in the next stitch, skipping the next, and then we're going to finish the double crochet 2 together in the next stitch. Alright, now here we go in our 2s again. We're going to place 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. Now don't accidentally think this next one belongs to this portion, because the top of the stitch are on the back side now. The top of the stitch, you just go up from the base, follow it, it's right there, boom. Okay. Now we are going to place what is essentially a V-stitch into this chain 2 space, which is a V-stitch now from the previous round. So you're going to double crochet in the chain 2 stitch, chain 2, creating your next one, and then again double crochet again into that same chain 2 space, not stitch, so chain 2 space. All right, now we're going to place 2 double crochet, 1 in each of the next 2. Remember, 2 2 2s going on here. And then we're going to double crochet 2 together, again skipping over this double crochet 2 together from the previous round. So an easy way to remember that is you're going to double crochet 2 together and just begin the stitch, skip the next, and finish in the next. Okay. Then again we're going to double crochet in each of the next 2. So now we're up on the V-stitch, and we're going to double crochet, chain 2, double crochet all into that chain 2 space, place 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 double crochets, just stacking now right on top. And now it's time to do another double crochet 2 together. So begin it in the next, skip the next stitch, which is that double crochet 2 together from the previous round, and then finish it in the next. And then you're down to your last 3 stitches, your 2 full double crochets and the chain 2. So you're going to place a double crochet in each of the next 2, and then 2 double crochet in the last, which is the top of your chain 2 space. Try to get through both of those top loops. That'll give you a really nice clean edge. Okay, so now you just repeat row 2 over and over and over again. Now I'll do row 3 with you, which is exactly the same as row 2, and what you'll do on and on and on till your desired length. All right, I want to do it one more time so you get a good sense of it. We're going to chain 2 and turn, double crochet in that first double crochet, 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. That gives you your 3 full double crochet plus your chain 2 at the end. Now we're going to do our double crochet 2 together, beginning in the next stitch, skipping over the next, and finishing in next. Okay. Place 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. That brings you to your chain 2 space, the V-stitch. You're going to place another V-stitch into that. Double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet all into that chain 2 space. Then again, you're going to double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Double crochet 2 together, beginning in the next, skipping the next stitch, and then finishing in the next stitch. 1 double crochet in each of the next 2. And here we are up to the next V-stitch. So in that chain 2 space, place 1 double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, again 2 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 2, double crocheting 2 together, beginning in the next stitch, skipping the next, finishing in the next, will bring you to your last 3 stitches, 2 full double crochets, and your chain 2 at the end. We'll do 2 double crochets, 1 in each of these next 2, and then to the side of that last double crochet, there's your chain 2 from the previous round. Go through the top, those 2 stitches, and put 2 double crochets. So when you look at your work, all of your double crochet 2s together should line up. That's where you have your spacing. All of your V-stitches, a chain 2 space. And here again, we have the 3 we've done so far. Double crochet 2 together, another V-stitch, and the double crochet 2 together. Sometimes they're a little hard to see. These aren't supposed to have as much spacing as the V-stitches. That is it for this pattern. So you just keep repeating this row 2 over and over and over again. And if you want it to be a scarf with fringe, what I do is I take a DVD case, I wrap it around either the short side to side or the length, the long end top to bottom, depending on how long I want the fridge. Can you tell I'm getting hungry? That's funny. Okay. In this case, I used the long portion of the DVD case and I wrapped it around. And then you can cut however you want your yarn to be. I deconstructed the rest of this skein that I had so that because of how the colors worked up and they came up with the browns and the beiges on one side and then the teal and the purple on the other. So I decided I wanted a little bit of color in each. So I went with 6 strands. I picked 2 from the brownie family and 2 from the gray because you get a little bit, as you can see, lighter and darker of each. So I picked that, and then I picked 1 strand of the teal and 1 of the purple color, and I just put those on again, like it's not an exact number going all the way across. Here I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see that better, hopefully. Okay. So I just looked at it, and you can see there's some areas where there's an extra stitch in between than the other, and that's okay because it lays really nicely, and you can move one over. When I put them on, I don't cinch the knots down real tight at first until I make sure that that's where I want my placement. But I just went approximately every 2 or 3 stitches in between each fringe section, and then I went into each space and then kind of somewhere in the middle in between each of those. On this yarn, where it's very delicate, if I went to the very end where that chain 2 space is, it stressed this out, and I could tell it was going to stretch it out as well. So I put these 2, the chain 2 and the first full double crochet, kind of counted that as 1 for my fringe, and this is where I put the first grouping of fringe on both ends. And it gave a better base and kept the shape more of what I wanted. And as far as if you're doing a cowl or infinity scarf, sewing in your 2 sides together, you can do it however you like to where you get the cleanest look or whatever you're satisfied with. Just make sure that when you end, you are on the right side, so when you put your 2 ends together, you have the same sides that are going to be facing up and the same on the inside. So to sew them in, do the wrong sides together so your seam is on the inside. You can crochet them together or you can sew them together. My preferred look for that real clean seamless look is to sew them together. My recommendation, this is pretty much what I do for all of them, is I do a mattress stitch where I take my yarn needle that's appropriate for the size yarn that I'm using, and what I do is when I cut my yarn, I cut it twice the width of my piece, and then a little extra for sewing in the end, and then I take that tail end where I've cut, thread it through my yarn needle that's of appropriate size to the yarn that I'm working with, and then I go through both stitches. I do on both sides and make sure I'm going end to end. So I'm matching everything up, and especially where you have the points here, there's really no hiding that. You want your, like where you have your dip on one side is where your point is going to be on your other side. See, the point's going to go into the dip, and this point is going to go into the dip on the other side, all the way across like that. I'm getting hooked up on my mat. Okay, so you go in two sides, then pull your needle through, then you go over to the next stitch on the side you came out of, and then go back down on the corresponding stitch on the other side. Then you pull your yarn needle through, and then again, now you repeat by going through the two stitches on this side that you came out of, and through the two stitches corresponding on the other side. Pull your needle through, and you just do that over and over. Not back through the next set of stitches to the one you just came out of, and through the next two corresponding on the other side. Pull that needle through, and then that's all you do. Back and forth, back. See, these, we're pretending now, these are already attached and sewn together, and you just do that back and forth, all the way to the end. And when I get to the end, and even on the beginning, I will run it through a couple of times just to really reinforce those ends, because anywhere where there's a join, that's going to be a stress point. And then I just cut my yarn and weave them in as usual. Alright, that's it for this tutorial. Oh, please let me know if you like it, what you think. If you make it, I sure hope you do. Okay, thanks as always for being here, joining me, spending a little time together. And please, if you would, subscribe if you haven't already. Like, comment, and share, and help my channel grow so I can bring more fun stuff to you. Okay, take care, and I'll see you soon, everyone.